Niji180 here again, and today we are looking at this Namco Rays PCB in our everlasting quest to see what actually works on Crisis Zone. I'm not too hopeful of this I/O board, which is like the second most important thing, because if you don't have this, the game will not boot really, it just won't. And now again, this is going back to the thing I was saying, it was all tested and said it was working fine, but since being shipped it just doesn't really seem, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be working effectively. Now, this is a JVS PCB, which is JVS being the USB-like connector, that isn't USB. And basically, what this board does is actually, it's really interesting. Here's the actual module from this camera assembly. And what this is actually a CCD camera. And you might think, oh, well, that's just literally from a camera lens. And you'd be pretty much correct. Basically, what I've been basically trying to figure out what's working and trying to see if this camera works, if this board works, if other things work, and it seems like the gun has an issue, which anyway, going on to this board, this is a very interesting board actually, because you'll actually be able to see there it's actually an SH4 processor. Now, what's so significant about that? Well, because the SH4 processor is also used in the Naomi over there, so you know, all the power of the Naomi. He lied. We got this Xilinx Spartan chip. I don't know what that does. This custom chip, which will probably be some specific Namco chip. We got our I/O PCB ROM. This is also going to be an MCU, I would imagine. This is our RAM for the SH4. And yeah, you actually got in the actual inlet part here. You'll see is the I/O cable. This is 5 volt ground 12 volt. It goes into this custom connector. I don't know if you'll be able to see the wiring, because that's going to be useful to someone. So if you want to know the wiring, that's how you wire these boards up. And basically what I've been doing is trying to see if this I/O board works or not. And one of the things I've been doing, excuse me, I've just broken this wire, so, well, not broken it, but disconnected it, so I can't show you what I've been doing. Don't worry, he says he's fixed it. Basically, this PCB can connect to any JVS board, and if your JVS board will read inputs, that's what it'll read this. So, you'll notice the Naomi was over there, you'll notice this VJ cable, and you notice this. This is a USB cable that's been hacked up. Yes, I've been testing this board, and, well, this comes on. Well, when you see the Knight Rider thing, which is just going like that, basically what will happen is this will work. It will come up on the Naomi saying Namco JVS Rays PCB assembly. If you go into input test, it does actually recognise the input from the gun. The input being the switches, it doesn't actually seem to register the analog, but I think that's something that's proprietary to this I/O board. Bloody cable keeps coming out. You'll notice this cable. We'll go on to that in a second. If I can. This cable keeps popping out, and I'm really getting annoyed with it now, because I need it in to show you something. But anyway, basically the board we've got here, this is good point. I think this was a 2.5 volt I think this was a 2.5 volt what's the name, regulator, and I think that was a 3.5 one. Yeah, 3.5 seems to be the actual logic voltage, because measuring the pins here, the error, the camera error, the gun error, and the gun trigger all seem to be 3 volts, so obviously when you ground them it goes low. Don't know what this connector is. I think it's for like some ROM board, but I don't think it needs it, or nor do I have it. This is our JVS I/O connector, and if you are trying to wire this up to something else, say like the system 246 for Time Crisis 3, because that also uses this board, this is the connector you'll need. I don't know what the connector is. It's actually, I think it's an AMP, and the connector's, the wire's fallen out. But basically, your connector is this brown wire here. That's your sense wire. That will go to your 5 volt pin on the USB. Your black there, although this will be different depending on what you're doing, but on this one, this pin here is, so basically if you're wiring this up, that pin there, that brown one, is your sense, or your 5 volt. The pin next to it, the black wire, that is your data minus, red wire is data plus, and then your other ones are ground. So that's if you're wiring up the board, so you'll need to know that, because obviously then you can connect it to the Naomi or whatever board, and it should, at least you can test it. TV's going nuts. Yeah, it's this cable here. Now you'll notice that this cable's connected. You'll also notice my TV's going nuts because of it. Now, why is it connected into the front of my amp, and why is it, seriously, why is it doing that? I actually don't know. I'll tell you what, I'll probably strip that. Yeah, if you give me about a minute, I'll go and or maybe if I can find the tool, I'll do it on camera. Let's see if I can find the tool, because my room is an absolute mess. If I can't find it at all, I'm just not going to bother. Nope, it's gone missing. Okay. Oh, I'll have to do this the old-fashioned way, which is just bloody annoying. Right. Cable, you're being straight. You're going into that connector, and you are staying in there. I don't care whether you want to be in there or not. You are going in there, and you're staying in there. There we go. Right. Not flickering anymore. So yeah, why have I done this? And why is it going to this loom? Why is it going to the camera? Aha! Here's an interesting thing. This is a camera, and actually, what's interesting about it is obviously it's a CCD camera. That got my mind triggering. What does it actually do? You know, does it actually output a digital signal? Does it output some signal to say where the infrared LED is on this, or is it literally just a bog standard composite video camera? Well, basically, you need to supply this thing with 12 volts power, which actually comes through the I/O board on this orange wire, and you also need to connect the video in signal. Now, as a little quick mess, I've plugged it into my amp and I plugged it into my TV because this does NTSC sync. So if I turn the power supply on, you'll notice the LED comes on, and then this is doing its Night Rider thing. So that board's actually working. Also, you'll notice there's nothing on screen. That's interesting. Huh. Oh, there we go. Let's see if... Ha ha! You'll notice that's a black and white signal. If I can get that to stay in there... Oh, glitchy. That'll work for demonstration. No, it won't, actually. Oh. Analog signals. Gotta love them. There we go. Right, so this is our signal. And if you notice... Hello! You can see me! Ha 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 ha! Everything is all in black and white. What's going on there? Well... Actually, I was looking into that. If we go info on our remote, you'll notice it's NTSC at 480i. Basically, this is a 640 by 480 NTSC composite camera. So literally, if you don't have this board, you can literally, just get any composite camera. Oh God, that's getting warm fast. Any composite camera, plug it in, and it should indeed just come up. Because I mean, that's all it needs. I think you need it to be black and white, but you know, black and white composite NTSC camera, and it should work fine. So, yeah, that's quite interesting to see that. So, yeah, literally, Crisis Zone, all it uses is that. In fact, if I was to point the remote at it, we might actually see it doing its thing. Let's see if we can get it go. Oh, no. Ooh. Oh. Yep. That's cool. So, yeah. And actually, all that is on this. There's on the thing. It's actually a window with this plastic piece, and this plastic piece, this literally goes over, and it's like an infrared filter. So basically, if I can see if I can get this laid straight. Nope. You're not going to want to. Close enough. Well, you're right. So the filter's now on the camera. You won't notice a difference, but you should be able to notice. If I do this. Whoa, look how bright that is. Look. Bang. That is what that does. It's an infrared filter, essentially. So it means anytime you shoot on the gun actually turns an LED on so that you can actually... the camera sees where it's pointing, and then this Rays PCB actually figures out where the points are. So I think when you're actually calibrating... This is a really interesting piece of tech going on here. This Rays PCB... Basically, turns on the LED for the gun, at which point the camera picks it up, and then this board has loads of different processes to actually figure out where the board is, the actual LED is on the in relative to the screen. So that's pretty interesting. Now, obviously, the actual camera doesn't really care about the actual screen where you shoot on the screen. All it cares about is actually where the LED is. So when you calibrate it, you calibrate a couple of points up, and when you shoot, using those reference points, it actually figures out where the heck you're pointing at, which is a really interesting board. It's a really interesting board if it would work. You'll notice it's no longer doing the Knight Rider thing, and that LED is frozen solid. That one's actually the camera. The one next to it's actually JVS. And you're thinking, well, it's not hooked up to a an arcade board. It won't work. It should work anyway. The actual JVS, it doesn't care. I mean, that's what I had the Naomi out for. The Naomi, it does register it as well, but it doesn't actually work. You know, well, it works on the Naomi, but it doesn't stay on for long. After about a minute or two, it just cuts out. And like this, it just freezes, locks up. And this button here actually resets the I/O board, and then it just does this. It just hangs on that one LED. Now, if I hold that button down, because this is just resetting the SH4 processor. No, didn't do it that time. Just have to hold it down for like several seconds for it to actually do something. And then, no, it's just not having it now. Sometimes it'll just spring back into life and do the Knight Rider thing. I don't even know if this board works then, because I mean, obviously now there's the I/O boards at question. Again, is that some security feature that it's not connected to Crisis Zone, it won't work? I don't know. Crisis Zone is dead. I can't test this. I mean, I can test it, but it doesn't really turn on and stay on. So, but you know, when the second most expensive thing, the camera, obviously working. Haha. So yeah, that's that. And I mentioned the gun wasn't working. Well, shall we get onto that can of worms, shall we? Basically, I don't know if I've still got all the setup here. Just excuse me for 1 second while I figure out where everything is in relative position to planet, stars and moon. No, it's not all wired up. Basically, this, I'll pause it and then I'll be right back with you. In fear of the video getting deleted due to the fact that my phone obviously will cut out if you pause it for long enough, I'm going to show you how you actually wire this thing up. This is actually the power connector for the gun, and this power connector actually contains the 24 volt and the 5 volt line for the gun. And the 5 volt line's for the LED, and the 24 volt, well, you take a guess, it's for the solenoid. Well, it's not a solenoid, sorry, it's a motor. It says a motor on a pivot, not pivot. Oh, I can't think today. And yeah, I'll just quickly show you how to wire that up. Now you can obviously run any 24 volt power supply. So basically, I'm just gonna literally plug the wires directly into the connector. Now the actual AMP connector, you'll have to read it. You can actually read it if you put it in the right sunlight. You can read the connectors. You want to be putting the pins into 1 and 3. 1 and 3 are actually a 24 volt plus and minus values. So let's get this right. So pin 1, if we follow it on the actual board, goes to grey, goes to 10, goes up to 1. So that goes to. So pin 1 is actually our solenoid, and then pin 3 is, well, that's our motor, and then pin 3 is our minus. Now, why am I telling you all of this, and why am I taking so much care into the actual thing? Well, obviously the motor is a big part of the board, the game, and I've got this I've got this 24 volt power supply hooked up, and literally when I touch that, it will actually it should provide the motor with power. Well, you know, it should provide the board with power to turn on the motor, but it shouldn't be powering the motor. And it's providing the board, the motor with power, despite the fact it's not connected to any board to tell it to turn the motor on. So this is just like you turn them on the gun, and it's just going nah. It's just oh my lord. I know what's wrong with this though. There's a it's not solid. What it is, it's basically, it acts like a relay. So when you provide power, it turns on a the gun. But it's just more to fix. And I bought this whole thing working. I don't know. Well, anyway, I thought I'd give you an insight into it as to what's going on with this board. And I actually did try to run the I/O board through Virtua Striking. It didn't like it and just said, "You've got the wrong I/O board, mate." But you know, the name was fine. It just said it was the I/O board. When it wasn't freezing and crashing, it was doing its job. So let's count it up. Crisis Zone completely dead. Nothing working on it. Well, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. Right. So that's dead. The ROMs may be good, but there's no guarantee about that. The gun. Yes, I can't test it. The gun, in theory, it should work. The LED, as far as I know, should work. The motor works, but it's always on, so I can't use the motor on it. So that's a bit annoying. Then we have, what was it? The I/O board. The I/O board, it's hard to say. It works, but then it doesn't. So is that to do with crisis zone? I don't know. Is it to do with the fact that it needs a signal every so often? I don't know. Is it just the fact the board is faulty? I don't know. The camera works great, fantastic, works absolutely fine. But then I'm not really expecting that to fail so hard. But yeah, it's like so. 1 out of 4 things that I actually need to get the game working, and the gun in theory should work, but there's no guarantee. The I/O board, again, I don't know, and I don't want to have the I/O board freezing while I'm holding down the trigger against the thing. Obviously, I want to get the gun working properly, and then this gun getting jammed and then just constantly being on. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this thing. I really just want to get it sorted out. So anyway, I thought I'd show you a bit look into what else other than Crisis Zone actually works. So I shall be contacting Sarah. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed and thank you for watching.